Well, good evening. And first of all, I'd like to thank Chief Louis for his words of welcome. Unfortunately, now I experience what it's like not to be heard by Ottawa also. So, yeah, it's nice to see a crowd out tonight, and it should be an interesting evening. We represent quite a varied array of interests, I suspect, and you'll hear different perspectives on water from the various panel members. So we'll get this started. By way of background, I attended the University of Regina. I'm a late bloomer. I was a very mature student when I went back to university from the world of business, and decided I wanted to follow something or pursue something that was more along my passions. And being from Saskatchewan, where water is rare, water is one of my passions. And moved to British Columbia because we don't have many trees in southern Saskatchewan either, and we don't have any mountains, and we don't downhill ski unless you're at Mission Ridge or Mission Ditch. So a bit about me. I work at the University of the Prairie Adaptation Research Collaborative, which is a think tank for climate change impact and adaptation research. So a lot of work that we did there was related to water availability, historical, and projected into the future. Province of British Columbia, I've been working for the province it's coming on to 9 years now, mostly with water allocation, so giving out water rights and water licensing and so on, also approvals. I call that mucking about streams. People tend to muck about streams, put in bridges, culverts, etc., so approvals. I'm a flood assessor for the province, so I have some experience responding to flooding emergencies and so on. And I'm also a deputy inspector of dikes, so kind of round things out. I spend a lot of time around water. Whenever I'm not in the office, I'm around water. I have a disclaimer here. Some of the opinions expressed tonight are my opinions. They don't necessarily reflect, and actually some will conflict with official government opinion and policy. So enjoy. So what's all the fuss about? There's a lot of activity around water. Columbia Basin Watershed Network, they had their 2013 Watershed Governance Symposium in Fairmont. It was an excellent, I don't know, raise your hands if you attended that seminar. Yeah, so small group. There was an excellent introduction. Richard Johnson, his words of welcome were just amazing, and talked about water and how we value water. All of us value water for not necessarily the same reasons, but there's a lot of commonality, and how water actually really binds us all together. And I wish I had a copy of that presentation. It was great. There's a lot of volunteer activity in the basin. I skipped over Cryospheric Network meeting. That's something a few of us are going to be involved with in Golden. It's being sponsored by CBT, Columbia Basin Trust, and it's looking at the frozen water, snow, changes to snow, and snow depths and so on, and also glacial mass balance, and how to bring that information closer to the Columbia Basin, and how we might use that information for just gauging what's going on, and also predicting what the future holds as we determine trends. So we have volunteers, Freshwater Alliance, lake ambassadors, and the active groups, community forests. There's a really good example in this area of community forests and how they've used the community forest model to protect the watershed. Wow, and it's working quite well. Streamkeepers, there are a lot of streamkeeper groups throughout the Kootenays and the Columbia Basin, and these individuals do a lot, basic research, or not research, but gather data, and they really care for streams, and raise a profile in public's attention as far as streams, and a lot of education. We have legislative change that's underway right now, the Water Act modernization. I'll talk a little bit about that as we move through here. Extreme weather events. You turn the weather network on any given day, there's an extreme weather event somewhere in the world, and we've had quite a few close to home. I mean, we've had Johnson's Landing a couple of years ago, an unfortunate event. We've had flooding. This year, We had the Elk River was 1 in 330-year event, so flood of record in the Elk River. Yeah, there are a lot of extreme events, and we're seeing higher, but more extreme, like more outside of normal or outside of the range of what you would expect, and more frequent events. I've been busier in the last 2 years in flood response than I was in the previous 6 years. Now that's a short period of time, but the last couple of years have been. I used to have when I was first trained as a flood assessor, I said, well, I don't feel confident in going province-wide on this because I really feel I haven't had the test. You know, I've been at this for 6 years, and there's a little flooding here, a little flooding there, and so on. No big deal. I said, I really haven't been tested. Like, all hell hasn't broken loose since I've been here. But last year I said, well, purgatory certainly broke loose if it wasn't hell. And this year it was hell, you know, and so it's just amazing how it's changed in a short period of time, and you really can't explain that. So extreme weather plays quite a lot into what we're dealing with. There's also an increasing number of conflicts over water. We've had long-standing feuds between neighbors and so on about water availability. You know, he's mucking around with my works, and he's using too much water, or she's doing this, or whatever. But those conflicts, some of these conflicts are really, they're escalating, and there's a lot of development pressure, too, for water, and when there's development, you need water. And whether it be agricultural, commercial, or residential development, you need water. And I know of areas in the Columbia Basin where there is no water. You can imagine. We're in BC, but there is no water that's available at a reasonable cost, reasonable price. There's water if you're prepared to spend enough money to get it. In other words, pump it long ways, pump it uphill. People tend not to want to pump water uphill. So presentation, talk about water and abundant. 10 minutes, eh? Wow, this is going to be tough. Is water an abundant resource? Climate variability in water and what the impacts that we are seeing, what they're projected to be as far as the climate changes, their variability, and the impact on water. Water allocation in the Kootenay, I'll talk a little bit about that. Just give you a snapshot of what's happened historically. Restrictions, limitations, reserves. Yeah, we have such things. And I'll talk about the example. I'll give you a close example of the Creston area, so I'll bring it right into here. Water legislation, Water Sustainability Act, I'll mention that, and your opportunity for input on that, and the window is closing on that. Emerging issues when it comes to water, and also recommendations on what needs to be done and what kind of support is needed. So, some might argue we have too much water. This is this one up here. That's the Elk River at Elkford. That's out at Hosmer, just upstream of Hosmer this spring. Hamel Creek. And the bottom slide is also Hamel Creek, and there's the bridge to nowhere from nowhere. So that's events, extreme events. We've also had experienced not enough water. The upper picture is the Okanagan region, and a stream that would normally be fish-bearing. Not in that kind of condition, it isn't. It's hot, and it's essentially, fish won't live in there. And then we have the Moye River, and that was in the fall, quite often dry. And on the right side, believe it or not, that's a water source for a small community. Where's the creek? There's no creek. Right, that's right in the bottom. 3 minutes, yeah. Okay. Climate variability, really quick. Increased variability. Our terrain here means it's going to be different impacts in different areas of the province. Overall, we're looking at warmer, wetter, higher annual average temperatures and precip. For the interior where we are, warmer, wetter fall, winter and spring, more rain and less snow, particularly lower elevations. Hotter summers, reduced precipitation. Here's a snapshot of the number of water licenses by purpose in the Kootenay Columbia region. If anybody wants to get this data from me, I can give it to you after the presentation. But 13,000 water licenses, a lot of domestic. Those are mostly small licenses, 500 gallons a day, so that doesn't account for most of the licensed use. Water restrictions, all those red squares are restrictions, notations, or reserves. in Region 4, which is the Kootenay Columbia, essentially, district. So lots of, you can see how that tracks where there's development in the valleys. So lots of sources are restricted or over-allocated. You can see blue dots and white dots here. This is the stream gauging network. Over here on the, I guess, your left is the existing network, the blue dots. And over there on the right, all the white dots are the discontinued stations. Okay. Some of those were for very short periods of time, just to get some idea of how much water was available, but some of them are long periods of record, and they've been discontinued because of budget constraints. Creston area, the green dots, you can make out green dots, black dots. Green dots are existing points of diversion in the Creston area, so a lot of surface water used in this area. The black dots are abandoned or canceled licenses. And there's the restrictions, notations, reserves in the Creston area. So right here, lots of notations, reserves, and restrictions on streams. Restrictions means not likely going to get another water license there. There's not enough water. Stream gauging network again in Creston. Very few blue dots left. Very little monitoring going on as far as streams. Lots of abandoned stations. Legislation, very complex. I'll just brush over there real quick. I'll tell you there's a lot of legislation that affects water. BC, the main one, is the Water Act. Being modernized, these are the objectives of the modernization. I'm not going to go over them. If you want to have a say and have a look at what those objectives are, you've got till November 15th to do that. Your input would be valuable. Emerging issues, well, increased demand as a result of development, droughts, heavy rainfall events becoming more intense and more frequent, earlier freshet as a result of warmer spring temperatures. So we're going to have water, but we're not going to have it when we need it, like in the summertime when it's hot and dry. So what does that mean? That means you have to put in storage or reduce consumption, reduce use. Reduced stream flow in spring and early summer, increased fall and winter discharge.